There is a terrifying, quiet moment when you finally put the phone down. You didn't send that paragraph. You didn't check their last scene. You just stopped for you. This feels like a funeral, the crushing realization that your love was not enough to save them. But have you ever wondered what this moment feels like for them? Welcome to the healing mirror. Today, we perform a psychological autopsy on the dismissive avoidant the moment you truly walk away. Not the fake walking away to get a reaction, but the moment your energy shifts, the moment your soul unhooks and you surrender. You might think because they pushed you away, your absence is what they wanted. You might believe they are finally relieved, celebrating their freedom. You would be wrong. Their reaction isn't relief. It is a neurological shockwave that shatters their reality. To understand why, look at the invisible script. You've been trapped in a biological loop. They pull away, your amygdala screams abandonment, so you chase, you pour love into the void, and they run. But here is the secret they need you to chase. Even if they call you too needy, your pursuit provides them with external regulation. It confirms they are worthy of love, soothing their core wound of defectiveness. More importantly, it confirms they are in control. As long as you chase, they hold the cards. Their nervous system has adapted to your presence. They rely on the certainty that you are waiting. But then, you stop. The script is burned. The silence is deafening. It is a lack of supply. And in this vacuum, the avoidance brain malfunctions. The brain is a prediction machine for the avoidant. The prediction is they will text me. When that doesn't happen, the brain registers a prediction error, a glitch in the matrix. By walking away, you haven't just removed yourself. You removed the mirror in which they saw their best self reflected. You forced them to face the one thing they run from themselves. So, take a deep breath. Let's journey into the mind of the one who pushed you away and discover what happens when the silence finally wins. Brace yourself. If you are listening, you are likely in pain checking your phone, feeling a hollow ache, grieving the loss of a connection that meant everything to you. Because you are empathetic, your mirror neurons firing wildly, you imagine they feel the same. You imagine them alone, staring at your photo, regretting their decision. I am going to tell you the truth. It will hurt, like resetting a broken bone. In the first 2 weeks after you give up, the dismissive avoidant does not feel pain. They do not feel regret. They feel relief, euphoric, intoxicating relief. To understand why, look at how the avoidant brain processes intimacy. To you, intimacy is safety, but to them, intimacy is a demand, a loss of autonomy, a slow suffocation. When you were chasing, asking for reassurance, trying to fix things, their nervous system registered your love as a threat, a heavy weight, a constant background noise of, I am not doing enough. When you finally walk away, that weight lifts. Biologically, their cortisol levels, the stress hormone, plummet. Instantly, in that drop, there is a surge of dopamine. They feel lighter, free, like they can finally breathe. This is deactivating strategies in full effect. These are processes used to shut down the attachment system, a survival mechanism learned in childhood if needing love is painful. Turn off the need. Flip the switch. When you leave, they flip that switch harder than ever. During this relief mirage, their brain actively suppresses mirror neurons. Normally, if someone you care about hurts, you hurt. But the avoidant has a neurological blocker. They refuse to think about your pain because the guilt would destroy their newfound peace. So, they compartmentalize. They shove the memory of you into a box, tape it shut, and bury it. They focus entirely on the present, on their autonomy. You might see them on social media, looking happier than ever. Mutual friends say they are doing great. They dive into hobbies, work late, and reconnect with casual friends who demand nothing deep. They tell themselves a false narrative to justify the separation. I made the right choice. We weren't compatible. They were too emotional. I am better off alone. This narrative validates their lone wolf identity. It reinforces that self-reliance is safety. They truly believe they have won, extracted themselves from the mess, and returned to their factory settings of solitude and control. They interpret your silence as confirmation that the relationship was a burden. You are gone, so the problem is gone. But remember, I called this the relief mirage. A mirage is an optical illusion. It looks like water, but has no substance. This relief is not sustainable. It is a chemically induced high from removing a stressor. It is not happiness. Happiness is deep and grounded. Relief is fleeting. They run on borrowed time, enjoying the silence, not realizing it grows louder the longer it lasts. They think the story is over. They think they closed the book, but they have only finished the introduction. The chemicals will fade. The dopamine hit of freedom will wear off, and when the dust settles, the void you left behind will become visible. Weeks pass. The initial high of freedom evaporates. The dopamine rush from escaping intimacy has metabolized. Now, the avoidant is left with normalcy, or so they think. But the human brain is stubborn. It craves homeostasis. It craves patterns. You established a pattern. You were the chaser, the fixer, the constant variable. Even when they pushed you away, their brain calculated a near 100% probability that you would return. They expected your text, your call, your fight. This expectation became a neural pathway, a well-worn road in their mind, but you stopped. Now, we enter the phase of the prediction error in neuroscience. This occurs when there is a mismatch between expectation and reality. It is the brain saying, wait, something is wrong. The world is not behaving as it should. When they see nothing, their brain registers a glitch. At first, they dismiss it. They are just busy. They will break eventually. But as days turn into weeks, that glitch becomes a siren. The dismissive avoidant has a secret dependency. Underneath the armor of independence, they rely heavily on external regulation. They relied on your desire to regulate their self-esteem. Paradoxically, your needy behavior made them feel powerful. It confirmed their worthiness without them doing any work. They could sit back and still be the center of your universe. By giving up, you cut off this supply. You remove the mirror. Now, they are forced to look at themselves without the flattering lighting of your love. This triggers a spike in seeking dopamine. This chemical motivates an organism to solve a problem. And right now, you are the problem. Why aren't they calling? Have they moved on? Was I not important? Notice the shift. In phase 2, thoughts were about themselves. In phase 3, thoughts shift to you. Curiosity is the first crack. It's not quite missing you yet, that is too vulnerable. Instead, it manifests as confusion, as a bruised ego. They start investigating your social media, looking for clues, looking for evidence that you are miserable, a sad song lyric, a melancholic quote, anything confirming you are still pining. If you are sad, they are safe. The pattern is just paused. But if you are silent, or worse, if you are growing and smiling, the prediction error amplifies. Silence becomes a void. The safety of knowing they could always come back is gone. They thought they held the leash. Now they realize they hold a severed rope. The power dynamic flips. They are no longer running away. They are standing still, looking back, wondering why there are no footsteps following. The ghost of your absence enters the room, and for the first time, the avoidant realizes their freedom might be solitary confinement. Now, we arrive at the great paradox of the avoidant attachment style. It is a concept that is frustrating, confusing, and heartbreaking for people like you who love openly and deeply. It is called the safety paradox. Here is the truth. When you were giving them your all, when you were loving them the hardest, you were actually terrifying them. To the dismissive avoidant, intimacy is not soothing. It is an invasion. When you are close, demanding time, asking for feelings, and seeking connection, their amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, is constantly firing. It perceives your needs as a loss of self. It perceives your love as a cage. Every text you sent was a demand. Every question was an interrogation. Every I love you was an obligation to say it back. Their sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight mode, was chronically activated in your presence. They weren't running away from you. They were running away from the pressure that you represented. But now, you have given up. You have stepped back. You have removed the pressure. And in doing so, you have inadvertently deactivated their threat system. The alarm bells in their head have finally stopped ringing. And this creates the perfect condition for something miraculous and frustrating to happen. Attraction. For the avoidant, space is an aphrodisiac. They are biologically wired to only desire what they cannot fully possess. They are wired to love from a distance. Why? Because distance is safe. When there is an ocean of silence between you and them, you are no longer a threat to their independence. You are no longer engulfing them. And because you are no longer a threat, their brain allows them to lower the drawbridge just a few inches. They begin to reconstruct your image in their mind. When you were together, chasing them, they viewed you through a lens of negativity. You were the nagger. You were the clingy one. You were the burden. Their brain highlighted every flaw, every annoyance, every moment of friction to justify pushing you away. But now that you are gone, that lens cracks. Without the daily pressure of your needs, they start to see you as an individual again. They remember that you are funny. They remember that you are smart. They remember that you have a beautiful smile. They remember the way you used to look at them before the fighting started. They start to separate. You, the partner who requires work from you, the person who was actually quite amazing. This is the tragedy of the avoidant. They can often appreciate you more in your absence than they ever could in your presence. You become a safe object of desire. They can fantasize about you. They can think fondly of you. They can even feel love for you. Why? Because you aren't there to ask for anything. Loving you from afar requires zero compromise. It requires zero vulnerability. It is a perfect, sterile, safe version of love. They start to feel a gravitational pull towards you, not because they have suddenly healed their trauma, not because they have had a spiritual awakening, but because you have become safe again. You are no longer the fire that burns them. You are the distant star that twinkles in the cold sky, beautiful to look at, safe to admire, but impossible to touch. And this safety, this specific type of safety, is the gateway drug to the next phase, because once the fear is gone and the safety is established, the brain makes room for the one thing they thought they had destroyed: memory. We are now deep in the timeline. Weeks have turned into a month, perhaps two. You are still silent. You are still holding your ground, and inside the mind of the avoidant, a fascinating psychological phenomenon is taking place. It is called the fading affect bias. Psychological research shows that for healthy minds, painful memories and pleasant memories fade at somewhat similar rates. But for the avoidant, the negative emotion associated with memories fades significantly faster than the positive emotion. Remember how they used to focus on your flaws. Remember how they magnified every argument. Well, the brain is an efficient editor. Now that the threat of the relationship is gone, the brain no longer needs to hold on to those negative defense mechanisms. It no longer needs to remember the stress of your neediness to keep you at bay. So, it deletes it. The anxiety, the suffocation, the irritation. Those feelings evaporate like mist. And what is left behind? The highlight reel, the hippocampus. The part of the brain responsible for long-term memory begins to activate, but it doesn't play the whole movie. It loops the golden period. It takes them back to the beginning. They start to remember the first date. They remember the way you laughed at their jokes when no one else did. They remember the sexual chemistry. They remember the feeling of being understood without having to speak. They remember the version of you that required nothing. The version of you before the attachment trauma was triggered. This is what we call the Phantom X phenomenon. Dismissive avoidants are notorious for pining after ex-partners. They often hold a candle for a perfect past relationship. But here is the secret. That relationship was never perfect when they were in it. It became perfect only after it ended. And now, you are becoming the phantom. You are being canonized. You are being elevated to sainthood in their mind. They start to idealize you. They strip away the complexity of your humanity, your needs, your anxieties, your demands, and they turn you into a symbol of lost love, a symbol of the one that got away. They might find themselves driving past a restaurant you used to go to, and instead of feeling relief that they don't have to spend money or energy on a date, they feel a sharp pang of nostalgia. They might smell a perfume or cologne in a crowd that reminds them of you, and for a split second, their heart stops. But be careful. Do not mistake this for a true awakening. They are missing the idea of you. They are missing the essence of you, but they are not yet ready for the reality of you. This stage is dangerous for them because it creates a cognitive dissonance. Their logical brain said, leaving was right. I need to be alone. But their emotional brain is now screaming. But it felt so good. We had such a connection. They are falling in love with a ghost. And because you are silent, because you are not texting them to break the spell, the ghost grows stronger. If you were to reach out right now, if you were to send a text saying I miss you, you would shatter this image. You would instantly remind them of the real you, the one with needs. The alarm bells would ring, the walls would go back up, and the idealization would vanish. But because you stay away, you remain perfect. You remain the unblemished memory, and this memory begins to haunt them. It follows them into their quiet moments. It sits with them in the car. It lays next to them in their empty bed. The safety paradox lowered their shields. The Phantom X activation loaded the weapon of nostalgia. And now, they are defenseless against the final blow. The walls they built to keep you out are now trapping them in with their own demons. The silence is no longer peaceful. It is heavy. It is crushing. And this leads us to the inevitable crash. We have reached the tipping point. The relief is gone. The curiosity has turned into anxiety. The nostalgia has turned into a haunting. And now, the internal collapse begins. This phase usually hits unexpectedly. It could be 2 months in, it could be 3, but when it hits with the force of a freight train. It starts with the triggering of their core wound. Deep down, beneath the layers of arrogance and independence, almost every dismissive avoidant carries a secret belief I am defective, or I am incapable of being loved properly. Usually, they keep this wound hidden by blaming you, as long as they can say, my partner is too needy, or my partner is crazy. They don't have to look at their own defectiveness. They can project all the problems onto you. You are the villain. They are the victim of your emotions. But you gave up. You walked away. You are thriving. You aren't chasing. This removes their scapegoat. They can no longer blame your neediness for the distance, because you are the one maintaining the distance. And so, the logic turns inward. The voice in their head changes from, they are too much to, I am not enough. I ruined it. They whisper to themselves. I had someone who loved me unconditionally, and I pushed them away. I am broken. I will always be alone. This realization triggers an amygdala hijack. The amygdala creates a sudden, overwhelming surge of anxiety. But this isn't the anxiety of engulfment they felt when you were together. This is the primal anxiety of isolation. It usually happens at night. During the day, they can distract themselves with work, with the gym, with superficial interactions. But at 2 a.m., when the world is quiet, the suppression fails. They lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, and they feel a physical hollowness in their chest. It is a vacuum where your energy used to be. They might try to fill this void. This is often when avoidants attempt to monkey branch or find a rebound. They might download a dating app. They might go on a date with someone new. Someone easy, someone who doesn't challenge them. But this backfires spectacularly. This is comparison syndrome. They sit across the table from this new person, and their brain instantly compares them to you. This new person doesn't know their coffee order. This new person doesn't understand their dry humor. This new person doesn't have the depth, the history, the warmth that you provided. The safety of the shallow connection feels boring. It feels flat. It feels like eating cardboard when they are starving for a meal. They realize that the drama they complained about with you was actually passion. They realize that the needs you had were actually connection. And the terrible truth settles in. They are bored. They are bored with the small talk. They are bored with the games. They are bored with the emotional sterility of their own life. They begin to crave the very thing they ran from your intensity. They realize that you were not just a partner. You were their external regulator. You were the one who helped them feel things. Without you, they feel numb. They are emotionally constipated, unable to process the grief, yet unable to escape it. They might look at their phone, thumb hovering over your name. They type a message. Hey, I was thinking about you, and then they delete it. Why? Because the shame is too great. The ego is too fragile. They are terrified that if they reach out now, you will reject them, and that rejection would confirm, once and for all, that they are truly defective. So they suffer in silence. They drive past your house. They stalk your friends' profiles. They replay your voice notes. They are living in a hell of their own making, a hell paved with the bricks of their own walls. They know they need to fix it. They know they need to reach out, but they don't know how. They have forgotten the language of vulnerability. So, they do the only thing they know how to do. They test the waters. They throw a pebble at your window to see if you are still home. This is the moment where most people fail. This is the moment where the silence is broken. But it is not broken with a bang. It is not broken with a bouquet of flowers or a heartfelt letter left on your doorstep. It is broken with a whisper. We call this the safe outreach in the dating world. You might know it as breadcrumbing after the internal collapse. The avoidant is desperate to relieve their anxiety. They need to know that you are still there. They need to know that they haven't ruined things permanently, but their ego, their massive and protective ego, will not allow them to be vulnerable. To say I messed up is to admit defectiveness. To say I miss you is to hand you the power. And if there is one thing the avoidant brain cannot tolerate, it is a loss of power. So, they devise a strategy. They need a way to touch you without getting grabbed. They need a way to check if the door is unlocked without actually walking through it. They need plausible deniability. They will reach out in a way that, if you reject them or ignore them, they can pretend they never really cared in the first place. It starts with orbiting. You will see their name at the top of your Instagram story views. They are watching. They are gathering data. They are checking. Are you sad? Are you dating? Do you look better than before? Then comes the digital poke. They might like a photo from 3 weeks ago. They might react to a story with a generic emoji, a flame, a laughing face. And finally, the low-effort text. It will be something completely unrelated to the relationship. Did you see that new movie trailer? I found that book you were looking for. Happy birthday. Even if it's a day late, or simply, hey, do not be fooled. This is not a conversation starter. This is a pulse check. They are sticking a thermometer into the water to see the temperature. If you reply immediately, if you reply with excitement, if you send back 3 paragraphs asking how they are, boom. You have just confirmed that you are still waiting. You have confirmed that they are still the prize. Their anxiety drops. Their ego is soothed. And often, they will disappear again. Why? Because they got the hit of validation they needed. The supply has been replenished. But there is a deeper neuroscience mechanism at play here. It is called rejection sensitivity. Despite their cool exterior, avoidants are terrified of rejection. Their brain processes rejection as physical pain. By sending a meme instead of an apology, they are protecting themselves. If you ignore the meme, they can say to themselves, oh, they just didn't think it was funny. It's not about me. But if they sent I love you and you ignored it, that would destroy them. They are hedging their bets. They are trying to bridge the gap they created, but they are doing it with the absolute minimum amount of emotional risk possible. This is a trap for the empath. Your heart leaps. You think, they are reaching out. This is it, they realize their mistake. But you must understand, they have not realized their mistake. They have only realized their pain. There is a difference. They are not reaching out to fix you. They are reaching out to fix themselves. They are testing to see if you are still an option. They want to keep you on the shelf, just in case they decide they want to play with the toy again. So, how do you handle this? This is the test of your resolve. If you engage too eagerly, you reset the cycle, you reward the breadcrumb, you teach them that they can shatter your heart, do the bare minimum, and still get access to your energy. But if you continue to hold your ground, or if you match their energy with polite, distant indifference, something else happens. If their safe outreach fails to yield the supply they need, they are forced to make a choice. They can either retreat into the shadows forever, which some will do, or they can be forced to escalate. They are forced to bring more to the table. They are forced to drop the cool guy act and actually speak. Because when the breadcrumbs don't work, they realize they are starving. And a starving person cannot afford to be proud. We have arrived at the final stage of the avoidance internal timeline. This stage does not happen for everyone. It only happens when you, the listener, have truly committed to moving on. It happens when you stop playing the game. It happens when you stop waiting for the breadcrumbs. It happens when they look at you, whether in person or through the lens of social media, and they see something that terrifies them more than your needs ever did. They see you happy, not the fake, look at me, happiness designed to make them jealous, but a genuine, quiet, radiant glow. They see you laughing with friends. They see you succeeding at work. They see you looking peaceful. And in that moment, the power inversion is complete. For the entirety of your relationship, the dynamic was defined by your need for them. You were the consumer. They were the supplier. This dynamic fed their ego and suppressed their fear of abandonment because they knew they were essential to your survival. But when they see you thriving without them, that narrative collapses. It proves a devastating truth to their subconscious mind. They were not the prize. You were. It proves that you were not the problem. You were not the broken one. You were not the crazy one. Because if you were the problem, you would be falling apart, but you were blooming. Therefore, the problem was them. This realization pierces through their defense mechanisms like a hot knife. Neuroscience tells us that humans are driven by loss aversion. We feel the pain of losing something twice as intensely as the pleasure of gaining something. But for the avoidant, this loss is specific. They haven't just lost a partner. They have lost their safe harbor. They realize that you were the only place they could unmask. You were the only one who saw the terrified child beneath the stoic armor and loved him anyway. You were the only one willing to do the emotional labor to understand them, and they realize, with a sickening sinking feeling, that they burned that bridge with their own hands. They look at their freedom, the empty apartment, the silent phone, the shallow dates, and they realize it is not freedom. It is exile. They realize that you were not the anchor holding them back from sailing the seas. You were the anchor that kept them from drifting out into the dark, cold ocean and drowning. So, what happens now? This is where the road forks, and I must be honest with you about the two outcomes. Outcome 1. The vulnerability breaks them open. The pain of losing you becomes greater than the fear of intimacy. This is the moment they might finally pick up the phone and make a real apology. Not a breadcrumb, a confession. They might show up at your door, trembling, ready to do the work. This is the rock bottom that creates change. But there is outcome 2, the shame spiral. For many dismissive avoidants, the realization that they destroyed the best thing they ever had is simply too painful to face. Their shame is toxic. It whispers, "You don't deserve to fix this. You already ruined it. Don't bother them again." In this scenario, they will not come back. Not because they don't love you, but because they cannot face the mirror you are holding up. They cannot face the guilt. So, they retreat. They shut down completely. They decide to live with the ghost of you rather than risk the rejection of the real you. They will carry the memory of you like a scar. You will become the standard against which everyone else is measured and everyone else will fail. They will watch you from the shadows, perhaps for years, loving you in silence, regretting the silence. Yet paralyzed by it, it is a tragedy. A Shakespearean tragedy of missed connections and fear winning over love. But here's the most important thing you need to understand about this final realization. Whether they come back begging for another chance, or whether they suffer in silence forever, the result is the same. You have won, not because you defeated them, but because you reclaimed yourself. You stopped dancing to a song that was hurting your feet. You stopped pouring water into a cup with a hole in the bottom. You forced them to feel the weight of their own choices. And in doing so, you freed yourself from carrying that weight for them. So, where does this leave you? We have spent the last 30 minutes performing surgery on the mind of the avoidant. We have dissected their relief, their confusion, their fear, and their regret. We have exposed the clockwork of their trauma, but I want to end this by telling you something that might surprise you, something that might contradict everything your anxious brain has been telling you for months. The reaction of the avoidant, the shock they feel, the pain they experience when you give up, is not your victory, and their silence is not your defeat. These are just side effects. They are just the inevitable chemical reactions of a system that has lost its balance. The true story here isn't about what happens in their head, it is about what is happening in yours. For a long time, you functioned as a rehabilitation center for a soul that did not want to be healed. You offered your heart as a resting place for someone who was terrified of rest. You thought that if you just loved them harder, if you just explained yourself better, if you just waited longer, they would finally see you. But by giving up, you didn't fail. You didn't quit the race. You simply realized that you were running on a treadmill. You were running miles and miles, sweating, bleeding, crying, but you were never going anywhere. By stepping off that treadmill, you didn't lose them. You saved yourself. The moment you stopped chasing, you broke the hypnotic spell of the intermittent reinforcement. You severed the dopamine loop that kept you addicted to their crumbs. You took the mirror that you held up to them for so long, trying to show them how lovable they were, and you turned it around. You turned it towards yourself, and I hope, in the silence of your own company, you like what you see. I hope you see a person who is capable of immense love. I hope you see a person who is loyal. I hope you see a person who is brave enough to face the void alone, rather than accept a love that feels like a cage. The avoidant may come back. They often do. History and neuroscience